To see you all. Sorry I am late. I had some trouble dialing in, connecting, but now we're connected, so we shall begin. So it is considered very auspicious when we begin something or finish something in Krishna consciousness. So the fact that we're beginning the study of the 18 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, with commentary and purport by His Divine Grace A.C.Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acarya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, this is considered very auspicious. So thank you all for joining. And as usual, if you have any questions or comments as we go, then please ask. So tonight we'll begin with chapter 1, which is entitled Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now we have to understand this first chapter in context. The Bhagavad Gita is literally known as the Song of God. That is how it is translated into English. Bhagavad refers to Bhagavan, which refers to God or the Supreme Being. And Gita refers to the song. So it is literally the song of God, spoken by God Himself 5,000 years ago in a place called Kurukshetra, which is north of Delhi, modern-day Delhi, in India. You can go to that place. It's a historical place. It still exists. So there's a very powerful place, Kurukshetra. And the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on a battlefield 5,000 years ago by Krishna, the Supreme Lord Himself, God, His devoted friend and follower, Arjuna. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is part of what we call the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is considered by some to be the longest poem in the world. It is something like 118,000 verses. It's a very long work, huge work. Some people say it's the biggest book in the world. So the Bhagavad Gita, what we are discussing here, beginning to study, is considered to be one chapter of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is 118,000 verses. So, it's a great work. And the Bhagavad Gita is around 700 verses. So it's just one chapter. Now, it is considered to be the essence of all of the Vedic literatures, the essence of all the Vedas, Sarvopanishado, Gavo. Sarvopanishad means it is the essence of all the Vedas, of all the Upanishads, all of the sacred spiritual philosophical literatures of ancient India. This is the Bhagavad Gita. So all Vedic philosophy is contained within the Bhagavad Gita in seed form. And it is expanded upon the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna himself on the battlefield. Now, the Mahabharata is a great story which speaks about the Kauravas, about the Pandavas, the Kurus, the Kuru dynasty. It is a history. Mahabharata refers to the greater history of ancient India, Bharat, Vash. And the Mahabharata is the history of this particular dynasty. who are known as the Kauravas or the Pandavas. So this dynasty, which is extremely powerful, they had come to the point of a fratricidal war. In other words, the cousins, for those of you who are familiar with the storyline, the Pandavas and the Kauravas were cousins. The sons of Dhritarashtra and the sons of Pandu. And historically speaking, the sons of Pandu were meant to become the emperors of the earth, because at that time, Bharata or India was considered to be the center of civilization 5,000 years ago on the earth. So whoever ruled that area was the emperor of the entire earth. So Yudhishthira, Arjuna's older brother, the eldest of the Pandavas, was meant to become the emperor of the earth. However, his father passed away, his uncle took the throne, and instead of giving the throne in due course of time to Yudhishthira, to the son of Pandu, he gave the he was going to give the throne to his sons, headed by Duryodhana, who was, as we know from studying the Mahabharata, he was a wicked person. He wasn't a good person. So the Pandavas, who were cousins of Krishna and also who were devotees of Krishna, Bhakto Sime Sakha Cheti, Krishna says later in the Bhagavad Gita, you are my friend and my devotee. Arjuna and the Pandavas, they were aligned with Krishna. They went to the Kauravas and they asked, please give us half of the kingdom. Because you're our cousins, we'll give you half of the kingdom. We don't need it all, even though it rightfully belongs to us. And they were refused. So they asked for 5 villages, and then they reduced what they were asking for, because they were saintly Rajashis or saintly kings. But they were told they were not to be given as much land as you could drive a pin into. In other words, we'll give you nothing. So at this point, they had to follow the law of Dharma, Sanatan Dharma, which means for a Kshatriya or a warrior, they must protect their valor and they must act to maintain Dharma or religion in the world. So in order to do that, to maintain and protect Dharma, religion in the world, they said, we have no choice now but to go to war with our cousins, to rid the earth of the improper rulers, of the impious rulers, and to rule the earth on behalf of God, on behalf of Krishna, to establish Sanatan Dharma or proper Dharma. So this is the context to which the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, because when the battle finally came, the whole Mahabharata battle arose, and then a description of the battle itself and what took place after the battle. Just at the point when the drama is intense and heightened, and the battle is just about to begin, the morning of the battle, which lasted 18 days, it was the first day, it was just about to begin. At that time, Arjuna has a realization, or he thinks, I do not want to fight with my family. I don't want to kill my relatives just so that my brother can become the emperor of the earth. So he thought like that. And being submissive to Krishna, who was driving his chariot, who is known as Parthasarathi, the driver of Arjuna's chariot, he asked Krishna, what should I do? Because I don't want to fight, but I know it is my duty to fight. So tell me what I should do. And that's where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, right at that moment. So it is the most exceptional of all Vedic literatures, spoken by the Supreme Lord Himself. And tonight we'll begin chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. And if you have any questions or comments as we go, then please ask. So verse number 1. Dhritarashtra said, so in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 4 people who speak. There is Krishna, Bhagavan, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, we'll hear in the next chapter, he speaks. Arjuna, who is asking questions to Krishna throughout the Bhagavad Gita for our benefit. Dhritarashtra, who is the blind king, who at this point in time, while the battle is being fought over 100 kilometers north of modern-day Delhi, which back then we called Hastinapur, while he was sitting in Hastinapur, he was a blind king, so he could not enter onto the battlefield. He was with his assistant, whose name was Sanjaya. And Sanjaya was a mystic. So he had the ability to see things in far-off places. So even though he was over 100 kilometers away from the actual battle, he could visualize exactly what was taking place, and he was giving a moment-by-moment description to Dhritarashtra, the king, who was able to hear about what is taking place. So these 4 personalities, Krishna, Arjuna, Dhritarashtra, and Sanjaya, they are the 4 people who speak in the Bhagavad Gita. So Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that one should read the Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a devotee of Krishna and understand it without personally motivated change. So this Bhagavad Gita, this version that we are studying in our Bhakti Shastri degree, it is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. Now, Prabhupada explains in the introduction, we're not making a formal study of the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita or the preface, but you should, in your own time, make a detailed study of the preface and the introduction, because there is so much philosophy and so much valuable instruction within the introduction and within the preface. So we won't study them, but you should study them in your own time. But Srila Prabhupada mentions in the introduction that there are over 600 versions, and he wrote this many years ago, 600 versions of the Bhagavad Gita translated into English, but not one of them has made a pure devotee of Krishna. In other words, the whole, and that's why Prabhupada has translated his Bhagavad Gita and named it Bhagavad Gita as it is, because he is letting Krishna speak for himself. He's letting the pure message of Godhead, of Krishna, be spoken. There is no room for interpretation. And it's called Bhagavad Gita as it is. And when it is spoken perfectly and purely by a devotee of Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada, when it is presented without adulteration or interpretation, and we're giving the pure message, it creates a revolution within the heart of the consciousness of the hearer, of the listener, and evokes devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is why we should hear the Bhagavad Gita from the right source, and we should study this particular English translation of the Bhagavad Gita, because there is no misinterpretation. Many of the other authors who have presented the Bhagavad Gita in English, they give an interpretation, their own interpretation on the text, which does not stay true to the text, and does not deliver the message purely, and therefore does not change the consciousness of the hearts of the individuals who hear the message. Whereas for ourselves, because we heard the Bhagavad Gita as it is, without, with the right mood, we heard it with sincerity, with a desire to dedicate ourselves to becoming devotees of Krishna, then we have understood something of the text, we're acting on it, and it has changed it's created a revolution within our consciousness. It has changed our life. So Prabhupada points out you must hear it from the right source. Prabhupada says in the second paragraph that the Gita was spoken by Krishna for the guidance of mankind. So although Arjuna is the person that Krishna is speaking to, factually he's speaking to all of us, because Arjuna was already a pure devotee of Krishna. So really, the Bhagavad Gita is being spoken to us for our benefit. And as Bhurajan Prabhu, the great commentator, the great follower of Srila Prabhupada, and the commentator on the Bhagavad Gita, who wrote this wonderful commentary, Surrender Unto Me, he points out that the Bhagavad Gita is spoken to and directed towards our buddhi, our intelligence. Krishna uses this term buddhi yoga numerous times in the second chapter. Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita out of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls, particularly within the Kali Yuga. And it is specifically spoken to our buddhi, or our intelligence. So, as Krishna will explain later in the Gita, the buddhi, or the intelligence, overcomes the mind. Because everyone knows, and Arjuna says this to Krishna in the 6th chapter of the Gita, that the mind is very difficult to control. So therefore, how do we control the mind? With the use of intelligence, spiritually surcharged intelligence, spiritually strengthened intelligence. So therefore, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken to our intelligence, so our intelligence will become strong, so that we can then control the mind and focus on the mission of the human form of life, which is to go back home, back to Godhead, and become a pure devotee of Krishna, become fully Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Sri Krishna, was present, unwanted plans like Duryodhana would be wiped out, and religious persons headed by Yudhishthira would be established by the Lord. So Dhritarashtra is concerned. He says, after my sons and the sons of Pandu, because he knew that his sons were not pious, they were not good boys. So he knew that Dharmakshetri, Kurukshetri, Samaveta, Yuyutsa, they've come to fight, but they're choosing the battlefield, the place they're choosing to have the war, is a holy tirtha, it is a holy place. It is a Dharmakshetra. It is Kurukshetra. And because it is a holy place, it will favor the pious sons of Pandu, my brother, the Pandavas. So he's concerned. How will my sons live? Will they do well in the battle? Will they come home to me? No, because the influence of this holy place will favor the Pandavas, these pious boys, these devotional personalities. And because Krishna himself was present with Arjuna, driving his chariot and was on the side of the Pandavas, this lent great favor to the Pandavas. So it's a very interesting situation that the Pandavas are favored, even though their army is smaller. But because they have Krishna, the father of religion, on their side, and they're at a holy place, then these things will favor them. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita teaches us. Even though we may be repressed, suppressed, depressed, all of these different emotions we may go through in life, because life is difficult, it's challenging, this material world is challenging. Even though we go through all of these difficulties, still, even though we go through these difficulties, if we focus on our service to Krishna, and we take shelter of Krishna and holy places and holy saintly devotees, we can overcome all these obstacles. So, text number 2. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. So, Prabhupada explains in the purport that Dhritarashtra knew his sons were blind in the matter of religion. They were not devotees of Krishna. And he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra was doubtful about the place of pilgrimage's influence. Sanjaya wanted to encourage the king and assured that his sons were not going to compromise. So he was thinking maybe they will be influenced by the pious surroundings, the holy place. They will come to their senses and they will surrender the kingdom to the rightful heirs, their cousins. But Sanjaya is assuring him, no, they will fight. They're going to fight. Okay. So Duryodhana goes to his teacher, whose name is Dronacharya. Right? In the Mahabharata, he's a very famous Brahmana who became the military guru of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So he taught them the Dhanurveda, the science of warfare. So Duryodhana is going to him and saying, please tell us about this battle. How are we going to fare? Text 3. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. So this is the history of the Mahabharata. If you've heard the story, it's a very extraordinary story, and there's many wonderful features to the story. Now, he's pointing out that the leader of the army, the commander-in-chief, the general of the army of the enemy, the Pandavas, is Drishtadyumna. Drishtadyumna is the son of Drupada. And Drupada was Drupada was the friend of Dronacharya when they were young boys. So Dronacharya, who now is the military guru of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, when he was in Gurukula, when he was studying as a boy, he went to school with Drupada. And Drupada was a great king. He was to become a great king. He was a prince. And Dronacharya was a Brahmana, which means a holy person. He didn't have material assets. The wealthy class, the Kshatriya class, the rulers, the royal dynasty, they are naturally very opulent and they have a great deal of wealth at their disposal. They live a materialistic, very comfortable life. Whereas the Brahmanas, or the holy people, the sadhus, they live very simply. So there's a difference in their lifestyle. So they went to school together, studied under their guru together. And they were great friends. And Drupada once said to Drona, when they were boys, when we grow up, I will give you half of my kingdom. So when they got older and they went their separate ways, and Drupada became a king. He took over his father's kingdom, and he was a powerful king. Dronacharya then came to him many years later and said, "You remember when we were boys? Because in the Vedic culture, if you make a promise, that promise must stick for life. That is not something we find in the modern day and age." But it must stick for life. So he said, when they were boys, he said, "I will give you half of my kingdom." He came and he said, "Do you remember when we were boys and you said you would give me half the kingdom? Please, can you make good your promise now?" And Drupada, for whatever reason, he decided that he did not want to do that, because it's very hard to give up your wealth. If you're a wealthy person, it's very hard to give these things up. So he said to Drupada, to Drona, he said, "I do not remember saying that." So Drona was deeply insulted. So he left. And he thought, "I will create an army which can conquer Drupada." So he went to the Kauravas, the Kuru dynasty, and he offered his services to become the military guru of the princes of the Kuru dynasty. When they grew up under his training, the Vedic system is that you offer dakshina, or you offer some gifts to your guru, to your spiritual masters. You offer gifts. That's called dakshina. So when the boys grew up, they said, "What can we offer you?" He said, "I want you to go and take the kingdom, half of the kingdom of Drupada, conquer him, and bring it to me." So they did that. They went, they conquered Drupada, and then they offered the kingdom to Dronacharya. He then basically became the king. And then he said to Drupada, "I will give half of it back to you," which in some ways was an insult to Drupada. So Drupada, there's a very complex and very in-depth story. There's a lot of background to all of these personalities and the story here. Drupada then decided, he was insulted because he was then defeated by Dronacharya. He said, "I will now have a son who can defeat Dronacharya." So he performed a yajna, a sacrifice, and from that yajna, when the Brahmanas performed the sacrifice, a warrior appeared from the fire, the flames of the yajna, from the sacrifice, came out driving a chariot. That was Drishtyumna. And Draupadi, his sister, was also born from that fire, who later became the wife of the 5 Pandavas. So Drishtyumna was born to kill Dronacharya. So Duryodhana has now gone in this verse to Dronacharya, and he said, just look who is leading, who is the commander-in-chief of the army we are facing. It is your disciple, Drishtyumna, who everyone knew was born to kill you. So please fight ferociously and powerfully in this battle. Do not let that happen. And Dronacharya was actually approached by Drishtyumna as a young prince, and he said, please teach me the military science. And this is how powerful this culture is, that even when someone, I mean, can you imagine someone who was born to kill you, who was created to kill you, and it was prophesied would kill you, and you know in the future will kill you, and still you teach them everything you know about military science, knowing that one day they will use that against you and kill you. That was the integrity or the caliber of integrity these great personalities had. So these are extraordinary stories. We can't go into all the details because time does not permit, but you can understand by studying this how powerful these persons were. Text number 4. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupada. There are also great heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitan, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, and Shaibya. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful, Uttamoja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. So, Prabhupada explains that even though Drishtyumna was not an obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power, others were causes of fear. They are mentioned as great stumbling blocks because each one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. So the armies are sizing each other up. This is traditional warfare, Vedic cultural warfare. In other words, people would fight, but they would fight in the most civilized way, which is not something we find in this day and age. But they would fight in a civilized way. They would fight each other. But the men would go to a battlefield. The women and children would stay away, protected. Not like in modern warfare. We're seeing in the wars right now on the planet that women and children are being killed, right, in these wars, unfortunately. This is not a cultured civilization. The men would just go to a faraway place and they would fight to the death in a civilized way. In other words, there were rules of engagement in the battle. You couldn't just do anything and everything, not like these days. You would never strike someone who had their back turned to you. You would only fight with equals. They could not fight until the sun had risen, and when the sun set, they would stop the fighting. There were rules of engagement, which everyone followed and honored. So he's saying, please be very, take this situation very seriously, because you can see who's here. There's many powerful opponents that we have to fight in this battle. Text number 7. But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikana, and the son of Somadatta named Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Prabhupada explains that he's trying to encourage himself, those who are listening. Just look at the strength of our army. Their army was 11 Akshahini divisions. The Pandavas' army was 7 Akshahini divisions. So it was, their army was around about a third bigger than the Pandavas' army. Right? It was a huge army. And this huge army was full of many powerful warriors. So he's trying to encourage himself and others and Dronacharya by pointing out, look at our army, look how powerful these warriors are. We cannot be defeated. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their life for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. So all of the heroes on the battlefield, Prabhupada points out in the purport, they were destined to die. Why? Because they'd sided with Duryodhana. This is an important lesson to learn in our lives. We will only progress in Krishna consciousness, we will only advance in our spiritual life when we take shelter of spiritual people, pious people, devotionally inclined with people. We will be successful if we align ourselves with the wrong association, with the wrong personalities, with impious people, people who are adharmic, people who are abhakta, not devotional, then we will perish. We will run into so many difficulties. So it's so important to, as a devotee, as a practitioner of Krishna consciousness, to always align ourselves with the right personalities. And then we will also progress in our spiritual life. Text number 10. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Prabhupada points out that the fact that Duryodhana thought that he would win this battle was well ascertained. His army was bigger. He had the most powerful warriors on the planet fighting with him. So he was sure that they would achieve victory in this battle. However, because he was sinful or because he was impious, he was destined to lose. So it doesn't matter how powerful you are and how materially well situated you are, if you are not devotionally inclined, if you are not a devotee of Krishna, you will perish in due course of time. Whereas for a devotee, everything remains auspicious because they dedicate themselves in Krishna's service. Therefore, everything remains auspicious in their life. So there's many, many interesting points regarding these personalities. Bhishma was the grandfather of the Pandavas, the grandfather of the Kuru dynasty, the Kauravas also, Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. He was the grandfather of the main warriors, the family who were fighting on the battlefield. And he had taken a vow that he would always protect the Kuru dynasty. He also took a vow that he would never become the emperor for particular reasons which go back historically. We can't tell all the stories in detail because it would take hours. But he had vowed that he would never become the emperor, but simultaneously, he also vowed that he would always protect the throne of the Kuru dynasty. Therefore, he was fighting on the side of Duryodhana, even though he was impious because he was the son of the current emperor. But because he aligned, and even though he's a Mahajana, one of the 12 Mahajanas, even though he's such a great personality, because he aligned himself with impious people, Adamic people, he also was destroyed. A very important point to understand. If we don't align ourselves with the right people, we will not be successful in our spiritual progress, our spiritual life. All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. So he tried to, Duryodhana is being very diplomatic, and he is trying to encourage everyone, even though he's saying Grandfather Bhishma is the most powerful. All of you are very powerful as well. So he is speaking appropriately to try to encourage everyone to fight the battle so that he may become the emperor. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. So, Bhishma was a great devotee of Krishna. He's one of the 12 Mahajanas. And he was in the mood of chivalry. He was in the mood of chivalry with Krishna. So he actually attacked Krishna later in the battle. When the battle took place, he actually attacked Krishna at one point. And he was in this mood with Krishna. He was a great devotee of Krishna. And he understood that because the Pandavas had Krishna with them, they would be victorious. Even though he was the most powerful warrior on the planet, he could not defeat them because they had God himself, Krishna himself, on their side. And this is symbolic, and it's also a great teaching for all of us that if Krishna is there in our life, we will be victorious even in the most difficult circumstances. If Krishna is not there in our life, we will not be victorious even in the most apparently easy situations in this material world. Okay, text number 14. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. So it is mentioned here that victory, Prabhupada explains in the purport, that victory are always with persons Lord Krishna is associated with, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Lord Krishna. So Krishna and Arjuna's conch shells and the sound they produced were transcendental. The spiritual energy, because Krishna is Achutya. Krishna is also infallible. He is adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means one who is above the influence of this material energy. He's the creator of the material energy. So he's above the material energy. So being above this material energy, he is transcendental. And when one is transcendental, when he's above the influence of this material energy, he will be victorious. He will always have good fortune. Because the spiritual energy is always more powerful than the material energy. This is something we have to understand as devotees of Krishna by studying the Bhagavad Gita. If you situate yourself in the spiritual energy and you focus on the spiritual energy, you will be victorious in overcoming the influence of Maya, the material energy, because the spiritual energy is more powerful than the material energy. It's a very important point to understand. So if we align ourselves properly with the Daivi Prakriti, with the spiritual energy, we can transcend this material world once and for all. So it's mentioned that Arjuna's horses, the white horses, they were given to him as a gift by Trichuratha, one of the great Gandharvas who Arjuna had befriended. The chariot that he was driving was given to him by Agnidev. His quiver was given to him by his father Indra. He was given blessings by many personalities to become victorious in this battle, in this great trial of arms, in the battle of Kurukshetra. Text number 15. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta. And Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Pondra. So Prabhupada points out that Krishna directly controls the senses of a pure devotee. Without the presence of Lord Krishna, the other side were predestined to lose the battle. That was the message announced by the sound of the conch shells. So it is said that Lord Vishnu, Krishna's expansion, has 4 symbols which he carries: the conch, the lotus, the disc, the chakra, and the club. The conch shell, which is blown to inaugurate an arti, to inaugurate a ceremony, it is blown to create auspiciousness. It represents Lord Vishnu. And it gives blessings and pleasure to the devotees, and it uplifts them, as does the lotus flower, the benediction of the lotus flower. Whereas the club and the chakra, they're there to chastise. So when they blew the conch, it uplifted their spirits. And the transcendental sound, when they heard that sound, they knew that they would be victorious. Those who were aligned with Krishna and Arjuna. Text 16, 17 and 18. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijay. And Nakula and Sahadev blew the Sughosh and Mani Pushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter, Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virat, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O kings, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. So the auspicious sound of the conch shells, it indicated that those are aligned with Krishna, with Vishnu, they would be victorious. So these are auspicious omens. We should always look for auspicious omens whenever we begin something significant in our devotional service. If we see there is auspicious omens, we say, okay, victory will come. Krishna is pleased. And if Krishna is pleased, victory will always be, good fortune will always be guaranteed. And text number 19, this will be the last text that we speak on tonight. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So Prabhupada points out that victory and fortune are always with persons that Krishna is associated with. And the sounds which came from the conch shell, when Krishna blew the conch shell and Arjuna and Yudhishthira and the other devotees blew the conch shell, the sound was so uproarious, it was so uplifting that the devotees who had aligned themselves with Krishna, even though the opposing army was bigger, even though the most powerful warriors on the planet were in the opposing army, they knew they would win. They had no fear of defeat. They had no fear of death because they knew they were aligned with Krishna. So this is one of the great teachings of this first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that if we are aligned with Krishna, victory and fortune will be assured. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments on anything that we discussed in our opening? Bhagavad Gita. Thank you all for coming. So next week we will continue with the first chapter, the study of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.